I'm going to talk about a class that I developed in fall 2008. I learned a lot while teaching it and developing it, and I wanted to share that with you today. Hi, I'm Scott Moore, and I'm an associate professor in the Ross School of Business at the University of Michigan, and I am also in the Business Information Technology department, and very proudly a Thornell professor. Last summer I was revising a class that I knew needed a lot of work. I wasn't happy with it, and also I had two books that I was using, and those were out of date because they were at least 2 years old, and in my field that's too much. I teach undergraduate business students. Those are BBAs, that's what I'll call them. I think they're fantastic. They're really smart, they're hardworking, and if classes don't go well, I usually know that that's because something needs to be fixed. I generally trust them. And that's where I was last summer. I was lost. I was lost in that I didn't have a clear vision of what a good class should be. I've won all sorts of teaching awards, great, fine. But that was in the past, and now I was having some kind of trouble coming up with a clear vision of what a good classroom experience was like. So I needed to figure something out. The trouble was that students wanted to pay more attention to their email and to their web surfing than to me and the lecture. Horrible. Absolutely horrible. I hated that. I used to teach a class that I really loved, that students loved to take, and that they learned a lot and were challenged a lot at it. I wanted to do that again. I realized that there was something I needed to do. Instead of fighting the students, I needed to work with them instead of against them. I needed to build on their strengths, draw them into the class by building on their strengths. I needed to work with them, not against them. We needed to be part of a team. I applied a few novel ideas to this class that sort of built on this concept of working with the students. And what I'm going to do now is spend a few minutes to go through those points, and then at the end reflect on how those changes reflected on student learning. First, major point was that class time was for doing. It was not for sitting there and listening. It was for doing and interacting. I would spend just a little bit of time lecturing at the beginning of class, maybe 20 minutes. And then they would spend the rest of the class, 40, 50 minutes working on exercises, asking for help, and me interacting with them, trying to figure out what that specific student needed at that time and trying to provide them help with the exercise. Learning details was definitely not for the lecture. It was for these in-class exercises and for out-of-class readings. I wanted in-class time, which was my most valuable time, to be taken up with us interacting and me learning where they were and to helping them with their specific problems. One thing I definitely focused on was making sure that class technology supported the collaboration among the students and between me and them as well. Certainly, I could share with them. I could use several different voices depending on the situation. I could be authoritative in my announcements. I could be guiding in the exercises that they worked on in class. And then I could also be informative in writing the blog entries for them that somehow was something that I found interesting that I thought they should know about, but wasn't necessarily part of the class. But then they could also communicate with me and the other students. I very much encourage the students to write blog entries and just post them to the class website just whenever they wanted to, whenever they found something that would be interesting or useful to the other students or somehow useful for me. And then there were also experiences where every day in class or periodically during the semester where we gathered data, students could post that data to the website, and then the other students could see that data and then use it in their work as well. One of the major outcomes of the class was that I taught them to be scientists. They went through and actually gathered data, analyzed the data, evaluated the data, summarized the data, and then wrote up the results and made it publicly available. I wanted them to see what it was like to have to do the work, write up the results, and put it out there for everyone to see. For example, the first First, several assignments had to do with going through an experiment where they evaluated different search engines. So I guided them through that process of, again, gathering the data, summarize the data, evaluating it, and writing it up. And so then they saw what that process was like. And at the end of the process, they had learned something new that hadn't been known before. And it was very interesting for all of us to go through that. And then several other times during the semester, probably a half dozen times, we went through that process again in class. Here in this example, they were looking at meta search engines, and they would all go through and gather the data and post it on the web, and then we would do some analysis. And by the end of the class, we would all know something new. We would also know about the limits of that knowledge, but they would understand that and then be able to apply it with the usual caveats that they needed. But still, we learned something new. It was very exciting for all of us. It was one of the favorite parts of the class for me and for them. One of the important parts of the class was I gave them the opportunity to work on something personally important to them throughout the semester. They worked on a term project from almost the beginning of the semester to the very end. Here you can see a whole range of the project ideas that they worked on. And I can tell you that they were each personally interested in these topics, this wide-ranging set of topics. And that really helped them in several different ways throughout the semester. First, it gave them a voice. They could think about these topics outside of class, reflect on it, and I could hear their opinions and their reflections coming through in their writing. There was also motivation. They were interested in the topic, not just for getting a good grade. They were just interested in the topic, and so therefore they thought about it more, and that again showed up in their project. And it also allowed me to encourage collaboration among the students. They were all doing completely different topics, so it was okay that they could talk to each other. They talked to each other about technical problems with the wiki or some other little assignment clarification that they needed. These little sort of annoying frustrations that came up to them during the project, that could all go away, and that just made the whole process go a lot better. I allowed and encouraged them to teach me and other students. It was very empowering for them to know that they could tell me stuff that I didn't know. Certainly they could also teach the other students, and they had a lot of opportunity for doing that. But there were projects and blogs and industry updates that we did that allowed them to act as teachers and help frame their thinking. Here's an example of a student's project, page from a student's project, where they were explicitly told that they were supposed to teach someone how to become an expert on a certain topic. And so here he wrote up how to learn about a topic and then how to get updates and all the other things that are necessary. So he had to think about what he knew, what the reader probably didn't know, what would be of value to the reader, and then how to communicate that to the reader. And that was all part of the assignment, and it was something that helped them clarify their thinking. Now here's a page on a blog entry that a student wrote. And again, what they're doing is they're thinking about what do I know, some reflection on their topic and on the class, and then what can I teach the reader? How can I get them excited and interested and then learn something about this topic? The students had 8 different blog entries during the semester. And this was something that they were told to write just anything related to the class, just anything at all. And also, if it could be related to their project, that would be so much the better. And finally, here's an example of an industry update. Students, a different student every day, would give a 2 to 3 minute talk at the beginning of class about something interesting that happened several interesting points that happened in the last couple of days in the search industry. They would also write a page that you see right here, 1.5 pages or so if it was printed out, on those points that they found. And again, it gave them an opportunity to be an expert and to talk to students and me using that voice and trying out their skills as a speaker.